Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. To live a passionate life with vitality, with joy, aren't these things that each of us want? I do. Well, maybe you felt that the fallout from COVID-19 has interrupted your living a passionate life. But how can you reconnect with that? How can you claim joy and vitality in this moment? Stay tuned for our special guest today, Dr. Mara Karpel, and learn from someone who has traveled this journey. Hi, I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute. Head to the Baca Institute to discover your creative advantage by taking the Creative Innovator Quiz. Find out your personal creative innovator style so you can open your creative flow and make everything in life easier. For visionaries, innovators, company founders, and product designers, optimize your ability to create more in less time while enjoying every minute. That's possible, you know. Dr. Mara Karpel is a psychologist, author of the international bestseller, The Passionate Life, Creating Vitality and Joy at Any Age. She's host of the radio show, Dr. Mara Karpel and Your Golden Years, passionate living motivator for Compassionate Austin, and contributor to Thrive Global, Huffington Post, and Sivana East. She works with adults of all ages and specializes with seniors, caregivers, and veterans. Dr. Mara has now launched telehealth consulting to help those looking to reconnect with their passion and purpose during these uncertain times. And don't we need that? Because these are uncertain times. Welcome, Mara. I'm really delighted you're here. Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio.
Thank you so much for having me, Laurie. I'm really excited to be here and to speak with you today.
Great. I know you've got lots to share with our listening audience, and I'm eager to hear what you've got to share. And I'd like to begin in a place of you reflecting on your own journey. And what was it in your own life, your life in particular, that led you to write this book, The Passionate Life, Creating Vitality and Joy at Any Age?
Okay. So not to date myself or age myself, but it started a long time ago.
It's okay. We're all friends here.
So I began college going for my degree in engineering, civil engineering. I wasn't really excited about it, but, you know, at that time, it felt like I needed to find some direction. And it was the 80s. I started college in 1980, and it felt like that was a good thing to do because women were being hired as engineers and making good money, and I was good in math. So that was it. But I wasn't passionate about it, and discovered that I really didn't enjoy all those math classes in college. And a friend of mine in my dorm suggested that she had seen a sign for peer counseling and for interviews to join the peer counseling center and be trained to be a peer counselor. And she said to me, you know, you're always listening to all of our problems, and you seem to be really maybe you should do that. I thought of you and I saw the sign, and that really struck me that would be something I would enjoy doing. So I interviewed, I got into the program, I did the training, and then the first day that I was a peer counselor, a student came in to the peer counseling center, and he was suicidal. And we would train.
Trial by fire.
Exactly. And he was the only client I ever had, right? Nobody came during my shift, but this one one young man. Yeah, definitely trial by fire. And we were trained, not to do therapy, but to evaluate if someone was suicidal, and then to convince them to come with me to the professionals at the student counseling center, where they had the social workers and therapists trained. So I spent about 2 hours with him, convincing him that obviously he came in for a reason. He wanted to live, and he eventually walked with me over to the counseling center. And I remember that feeling of just that buzz going through my body, that I had just saved someone's life potentially, and this felt really right. And that day I called up my parents and I said, I'm going for my PhD in clinical psychology.
You weren't just going to get a bachelor's, you were going to go all the way.
Right.
Bravo, you.
My parents loved education, but my mom said to me, what? Isn't there an easier way? Can't you do this more quickly? I said, no, I'm going to go all the way. So, I did it. I got into graduate school, and I was, it was rough, but I made it through. And finally, I was living that dream. And when I decided that I wanted to work with older adults, that was another passion. It was another one of those things where I said, that's what I need to do. And when I was finally doing it, I discovered that I was waking up during the night feeling like I wasn't doing everything that I was supposed to do.
So that was the well, let me backtrack a bit. What I'm hearing is the way in which you listened to your own inner calling and where your passions were. So somehow you knew something that a lot of people don't.
Right. I always felt that when I get that feeling like this is it, then that had to follow that. Because if I didn't, then I was uncomfortable. I just felt like things weren't right. So as hard as it was, I felt like I had to follow that. But now I was being woken up, and here I had gone through 8 years of graduate school, and I was now being woken up like, what is wrong? I did everything I said I was going to do.
But what is it? Yeah.
But, I made that decision when I was, 20. And now I was 30, 32, waking up during the night. So, you things change and your path sort of tweaks itself. And I didn't want to leave what I was doing, but I felt like there was more that I needed to do. And I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't as clear as it had been previously. So I had to really be open to exploring. And that's one of the things that I encourage people in living a passionate life, to be open to exploring when you don't know what it is that you're looking for.
How do you do that, though? How do you explore?
Well, at first it was uncomfortable, and then I allowed myself to be excited that I was on the brink of finding something new and to be curious. And so I just, as opportunities came up to try something new, I just went with it. And I started, I met people who would say, hey, do you want to try this? And that sounds really good. I was working in a nursing home where there was an art therapist who would come in. So I started going to his art therapy classes for my lunch break, and discovered that, I really miss drawing. And that's something that so I started drawing again. Now I was thinking maybe I would be an art therapist, but it didn't really lead me that way. But it led me to realize I wanted to be more creative.
It was you're being willing to be active. In other words, not just get an idea or, entertain ideas, but to actually follow through.
Actually follow through and try it. And it may not be that that's the thing. That may lead to something else. Plus, drawing, I think, even though that isn't my career, it opened me up. It opened up that creative side of me where I was willing to, be more right brain I had, I had to be analytic for all those years. Now I could be right brain again. And then started, I started practicing Buddhism because I was introduced to that. And that sort of opened me up. And like, it just sort of, that opened me up to then move to Austin, Texas, when I was given that. When I came here, I realized I could do more and I could actually be more creative because it costs less to live here than it did in New York.
Wow. So what did that offer to you?
So, when I got here, I was the idea of being on a radio. Well, it started with television. Do a television show because, nobody's doing what you're doing. You're an expert in geriatrics, and so I was like, I don't even like to watch myself on video. But we did a one-time live show on Austin local access television. They were selling the company after that, but we did one show and it was live and the cameras were wrong. Everything was wrong. The makeup was wrong. Everything was wrong. But I felt that feeling again, like that buzzing feeling.
Let's underline that for a moment, that buzzing feeling.
Yes.
That feeling in your body when you know that there's something you have to pay attention to. It's not necessarily the thing. We don't even have to think about that. But it's something that you have to pay attention to.
Right. And I said, I want to do more of this. I feel like I'm doing something right because I was still doing what I was trained to do. I was teaching about, mental health and growing older with joy and, healthfulness. But I was doing it in a creative way. And I was bringing that creativity into it. And I was teaching, which I felt like, I'm always telling people everything new that I learned. I love to tell people, hey, I just read the book, I have to read it. So, that feeling, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
We're natural. Both of us are natural teachers.
So then it led to, let's go to radio. Let's go back and do radio because the TV station had been sold and we really didn't know how to get it further with that. So when I started doing the radio show, we started in a small show in South Texas where I would pre-record and then send in the CD and they played it at 6:00 on Sunday morning. So it was really practice.
Yeah.
Practice. I knew I could mess up and not too many people were listening. So I remember sitting in the studio I had a friend who was the producer and he was sitting there with his headphones on. I had my headphones on, I was talking to the mic. And all of a sudden I had this flashback of when I was 10 years old and I was sitting in my bedroom with my new tape recorder recording a radio show, like it was a variety show. And I was all the characters. And
I love it.
Yeah. I almost started laughing while I was doing this, thinking, wow, I'm doing what I did when I was 10. So it sort of just evolved and we moved to Austin and started this show 8.5 years ago that I have, the Dr. Merrick, on local Austin radio. Dr. Karpel Your Golden Years, and then went to internet, to Blog Talk. And I started interviewing so many interesting people. And I really had, the other thing that I always wanted to do was write a book. And I had started writing mysteries, but couldn't really get the mystery going. It's really difficult. I could write a first chapter, but past that, I couldn't write it. But I really enjoyed that process of writing. And I was learning so much from my guests. I had learned so much along my journey because now I was doing something that I was so passionate about with the radio program. And I had discovered working with all these different populations, working in nursing homes with the very elderly and frail, to then I had my own private practice working with younger adults, and then started working with veterans about 9.5 years ago. And I noticed that the common thread was that when people found something that they really enjoyed doing and that felt like it was bringing meaning into the world, that they were doing something bigger than themselves, which is how I define passion, really, is that feeling of joy, something that you're doing that brings you joy and also has this bigger meaning.
So there's a connection to the outer world that's there with it too.
Right. That when you're doing it, it's helping other people. And I found that no matter how old or young or what their background was, different parts of the country, different occupations, a veteran versus somebody who's never been to war, that common theme was that once they found that passion, they didn't need me anymore.
Wow. What do you understand about that? About how that transformation takes place?
Well, when I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, that really struck me.
Yeah.
That we all have this deep desire to have meaning and purpose in our lives. And that even in the most horrible situations, he was in concentration camps, observing people, because he was already a psychiatrist when he was imprisoned. He noticed that when people started helping each other, it brought meaning into their lives, and they were more resilient. And they were the people that, when of the survivors, those were the survivors who were able to get back into life, versus people who had a much, much harder time after that.
Yeah. I'm seeing that now so often too, in with my clients, that the people that I know that are that are taking time to create something that feels meaningful to them, to engage perhaps in a new way than they've done before, instead of simply trying to survive through this time, that they really move into a kind of thriving that they may not even have been in before, because they're learning how to almost to innovate their own lives.
Absolutely. I think everybody talks about, how are we going to deal with the new normal?
Yes, and I want you to speak to that. Yeah. What the heck is the new normal, by the way?
Well, I think we're always in a new normal, right? Things are always changing.
Yes.
And when we expect things to be the same as they were just a couple of years ago, without this pandemic, without everything else that's going on in the world, we're going to be disappointed if we always want it to be like it used to be. But when we really look back, it wasn't really that wonderful. I mean, there are things that we could really use to change. And I think that this situation, like you talked about trial by fire, this really is. We're moving into another normal, but quickly. Much
that's the difference. Yeah.
We're used to. Yeah. And
so the speed of it.
The speed of it, and the fact that we are all being forced at the same time.
Right. And there's so many people that do want to hold on to something. And that's human nature. We want to hold on to what's known, what maybe felt comfortable. But I know about me, that when I'm comfortable, or at least when I say I'm too comfortable, I have to start looking like, wait a minute, something's happening here that I'm not paying attention to. I don't mean that I need to be stressed, but I need that to have that experience of I'm moving forward, because you can't stand still. Right.
One of the guests that I interviewed on my show was Naomi Levy, and she wrote the book Einstein and the Rabbi. And she talks about the listening to your soul's whispers. And one of the things that she said, and she wrote about in her book, is that if you are not getting woken up sometimes in the middle of the night, if you're not feeling uncomfortable, then that's a problem.
Exactly. And people get concerned. Sometimes they get concerned, like, oh my goodness, why am I feeling out of sorts? and they want to create a story about that because they don't know how to understand that.
Right.
So could you speak a little bit to that, to the power of discomfort, perhaps we could call it?
Well, I think that it's really easy to numb ourselves and get too comfortable with the way things are, right? And people distract themselves by being busy. Right before this pandemic, everybody was complaining to me that they were just too busy. They didn't have time to do anything. They were feeling anxious. Well, hey, why don't you try some meditation? Who has time for meditation? So the thing, people, I think, purposely get into that busyness and that distraction so that they don't have the discomfort. But discomfort is how we grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing pains. We can't grow without having some discomfort. So I think right now we're being forced to slow down and to pay attention. And for some people, that's really, really difficult. But I don't think that people would be so aware right now of suddenly everybody's woken up to the fact that there's racial disparity in this country, and this has been on since the founding of this nation, right? And people haven't paid attention to it. They've sort of gotten busy with their own lives and said, "Oh, that's terrible, but I'm busy." And now that people were home and didn't have all the distractions, and they suddenly were like, wow, this is something that I've never realized was going on to this level. I want to get involved. I want to do something.
So awareness comes out of that space of having space.
Right.
And this has been externally engineered. Okay. But in that bigger picture, maybe it's that we needed that. We were not willing to stop on our own and attend.
Right. And it's uncomfortable. Certainly it's uncomfortable to have, people are having to have uncomfortable conversations about race and what it means, right? It's not comfortable, but that's okay. I mean, when people come into my office as a client, it's not all unicorns and rainbows.
Exactly.
We're talking hard issues. That's part of the healing.
And the next step beyond the healing, it's part of that. How are we going to create a world in this new way? To create almost like, I hadn't thought about it this way, I don't think, but we're really creating the new normal. We're not the victim of the new normal. We're actively involved if we are aware in creating it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we could be very intentional right now about what we really want, what we want it to look like when we come out of the house.
Good point. Yeah, what do we want it to look like? So how does that relate to living a passionate life?
Well, I think that this is a really good time. We need to have quiet to listen to what our heart is telling us to do. We need to have time to pay attention.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good time to pay attention and to maybe do an evaluation of what was I doing before that I was just doing because I thought I had to do it. What was I doing that was just keeping me just really busy? It was just keeping me busy. What as uncomfortable as this is, and certainly if we were home because it was a vacation, it'd be a different feeling than knowing that there's a lot of grief out there because people are dying from this virus. So there's this fear that, we're worried about our family and our friends and ourselves. So it adds that to it. But are there things in this quiet moment that are really positive that we're getting to enjoy? Spending time. If we live with people or we're spending more time with them, maybe we're reconnecting with people more through Zoom and actually connecting with people we haven't spoken to in a long time. Are we starting to do more creative things that we enjoy? And maybe people need to do that. They need to start looking at what can I do right now that I would really enjoy doing. And then going forward, what can I leave behind that I really didn't like anyway? And what can I move forward with? Where can I take, this more time with family? And I'm missing family more. So maybe this means that now I have to spend more time with them when I'm able to. And are there things that I really would love to do?
Yeah.
Maybe we have to change how we do it. But not all of that is bad. I think that there's a lot more that we're learning to do. Certainly the connections through the internet and all of that have been really, I think there was a little bit of a learning curve, but now we're kind of moving forward with that. And that might be something positive to continue with.
And you are you are an excellent example of someone who has, through your life from a very early age, who has been willing to go beyond the comfort, to get educated and then say, this isn't quite it. There's something more. And so you are a great demonstration of what you're speaking about in your own life. Yeah.
I've continued. I still love doing my day job, which is seeing people and but I needed to add to that.
Exactly. And so this is a great time for all of us to look at what is it that we wish to add on. And also, as you're saying right alongside that, what do we want to let go of? And sometimes what I've even experienced is that there are situations and there are even people that, oh, no, this is not a relationship that I want to continue in.
Yes.
And that can be very challenging or, scary even.
Absolutely. And I think, we feel like we have, before we felt like we had to mingle with all different kinds of people. But you know what? It's okay to choose your close-knit friends. And certainly you want to be open to other people and ideas and networking and that sort of thing. But you don't have to spend all of your time with them. And you can sort of weed out who are your real friends and who are people that are associates. Yeah.
And the people that maybe are going to support this next step for you.
Absolutely.
It's not that they're, that the people you may be moving away from to some extent are bad people or even bad situations. But as you're moving into some transformative process, I know, at least for me, I'm finding that there are some new people that are appearing that in my life to create some projects with, to collaborate with, that maybe I wouldn't even have paid attention to before.
Absolutely. And I think, throughout my whole journey through life, I have felt that when I was making a new move, there were people who really felt uncomfortable with that and would try to find all the reasons that I shouldn't do it.
Yes.
And, so I think it's good to listen and say, is there something in what they're saying that's right? Don't discount everything. We want to evaluate, maybe I'm not being realistic or that sort of thing. But then if people are really continuing to block you, you need to say, okay, thank you. And who would support me? Surround yourself with positive people who aren't threatened by you, who aren't jealous, who are doing great things and are going to, maybe even people who are ahead of you. Right? Who are going to help you, bring you along.
Yes. Yeah. Make that leap into the next step. Yeah. And I've had that experience a number of times where what I've experienced is people wanted to see me as they knew me. And so it's not that they necessarily wanted to block me or in their conscious thoughts. They just wanted to keep me in the space of who they thought I was. And as I was changing, I had to be free to become who I am, or to step into that more fully and drop away the old behaviors, the old actions, the old ways of seeing myself.
Right.
That everybody that I had collected around me were willing to support and say, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes we have to stand up and stand out in a very new way in order to claim that passionate life.
Right. There are always going to be critics. There are always going to be critics, people who do not like what you're doing or feel threatened by it because you're changing and they're not.
Right. And they may be the people closest to you.
And they may absolutely be the people closest to you, and they may feel that they're doing it out of love, that they're worried for you. So we have to be able to navigate that, right? And say, thank you for your opinion. And our worst critic is often ourselves.
Absolutely.
We can find all of the reasons not to do the things that we want to do. When somebody taps into that, is really powerful. Somebody says the exact same critique that we have said to ourselves, then we give them a lot of power. We give them a lot of power. So those are some of the obstacles, I think, that are along the way that we have to be able to get through. And having people who are positive and who support us help us get through that.
Are there some other ways that you can recommend to help people stop feeding those monsters?
Well, I think it's again, getting quiet, being quiet, spending time in meditation really helps. Learning how to meditate. I think everybody should learn how to meditate. As
a meditation teacher, as someone who runs an online program twice a week, I certainly agree with you.
Yes. Well, I would say that you would agree that when you meditate, that's when you're sort of able to slow down your thinking, not stop completely your thinking, but slow it down so that you train yourself to later on when you're not meditating, to be able to weed out the thoughts that are not real. The lies that you're telling yourself.
The lies that you're telling yourself. So lies that you're telling yourself on one hand, joy and vitality on the other.
Right. Absolutely.
And which do you want to really give your attention to? How do you help people move between those?
Well, I think, we don't want to run from pain. I think running from pain, is a way of numbing ourselves, and we can't feel really joyful if we numb ourselves from any emotion. Because when I have veterans who have PTSD and they tell me that they can't feel joy, that they feel really numb, I tell them that's really natural because you are numbing yourself from the trauma. And our brain can't just numb one emotion and not the rest. Yeah. So it's the same with milder feelings of discomfort, that when we try to numb ourselves and run from the pain, then we're going to numb ourselves from joy. Yeah. So I think facing those feelings and looking at them head on and asking yourself, is this real? Is this a real concern that I need to have? Or is it something that I'm just blocking myself with?
Yes. So you don't get caught in it.
Right. And then if it is a real concern, then how can you work around it? Right? Can we get around that? If there's something out there that you really feel will bring you joy, is there some way that you can get there even around this concern? Maybe, for example, I would not tell somebody quit your day job and just go out there and try what you love to do because you think that's going to be the thing that's going to make you rich. Don't forget about happy, rich. And then they'll be happy because they're doing what they love. They always say, do what you love and the money will come. Right. Okay, well, the thing is we need money. We need money to live, and the money may come. I do agree that could happen, but it isn't always right away.
Right,
You're
right.
going to live until that happens. How are you going to eat until that happens? So are there ways that you can do what you love at the same time as making the money that you need to live? So
Yeah.
you have to sort of, work around it. It's not all going to be exactly the way that you want it to be immediately.
So let me ask you this, Mara. If you had someone come into your office and say, or your telehealth, you're doing lots of telehealth now, I know that, which is great in this time.
We're launching it. We're launching it, yes.
Okay, but because that also means that you can see anybody around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So someone comes into either your virtual office or your real office and says, yeah, I know you're supposed to do what you love. I don't know what I love.
Right.
I don't even know how to find that. I don't know how to find what I'm passionate about.
And that's when the exploration comes in, and that allowing yourself to move from that discomfort of, I don't know what I want, to the excitement of, there's something out there for me and I don't know yet what it is. I wonder what it is.
So what's the first step of that, though?
So, taking classes, maybe now virtual classes, trying new things, meeting new people who are doing interesting things, surrounding yourself with people who are excited about the things that they're doing. Maybe even
great.
finding out, maybe they're not doing something that you want to do. Maybe that doesn't strike your passion, but how did they get to where they are? Talking to people who have found their passion, what led them in that direction,
Yeah. So feeling the energy of that, being in the energy of that.
In the energy of that, be a detective.
Love it. Yes, I in part of what I do is I teach people how to be an inner researcher. And you're talking about that in the, hey, become a researcher, become a detective for your own life.
Right. Absolutely. That's, I think, where the excitement comes in when you look at it as detective work. That I'm kind of working on figuring this out. I know there's something. I literally went from feeling the distress of not knowing what I wanted to do to feeling like, wow, I'm on the edge of something and I don't know what it is. But
wow. Now, the other part of the title of your book is about at any age. So I'd love for you to speak to that because people get to a certain age, and for everybody, that's a different number, and say, well, I'm done, or there isn't anything left, or I may as well just keep doing what I'm doing because I don't know what else to do.
Right. And I think that's, I start off my book actually talking about that I started this radio show that I have now, the latest version of it, on, the one that started 8.5 years ago. I started it when I was turning 50. I was just discovering this passion at 50. And I'm not ready to stop. I'm 58 and I have ideas about what I'm going to do next. What am I going to do next?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a lot older than you are, and I've got lots of ideas about what I'm going to do next.
Yeah. A lot of times I think that people first discover what they enjoy doing after they have already done what they thought they were supposed to do, or their family, or they were they were a caregiver for someone else. Now, what about me?
Yeah.
What do I want to do? So this is the time. So, I was really directing the book at people in that category, but but with the idea that it would catch the outliers. So younger who
and I bet it has.
Yeah. And then older people. As I said, I worked in nursing homes, and I found I had a woman in the nursing home who was very depressed. And I worked in a nursing home in the Bronx that took a lot of the residents that were had been kicked out of the state hospitals when the state hospitals were downsized or closed in New York State. So she'd been a lifelong resident of a psychiatric hospital with severe depression. And now she was in a nursing home. She was elderly. And I was seeing her and she was just so depressed. And she'd always been depressed. That's how she defined herself. And so one day I said to her, you know, I'm going to go. Now, she was younger than some of the other people in the nursing home. So that was another issue. She couldn't find peers. So I said, you know, I'm going to go to that art class. That was at that nursing home with the art class. I'm going to take an art class today. Why don't you join me? And she said, oh, I can't even draw a straight line. And I said, I have a feeling that they're not going to, the teacher's not going to ask me to draw a straight line. She said, are you going to be there? I said, yeah, I'm going to be there. Meet me there. So she came to that art class and she discovered in that first day that she was actually really talented. And the teacher told her, wow, you're a natural at this. And she eventually went on to have her artwork displayed in galleries. And she stopped being, after all those years and all the medication that she was taking, all the therapy that she had been through, she wasn't depressed anymore. She was happy every time I saw her.
That's both heartbreaking and joyful at the same time. Wow.
So it's not too late. I mean, it's, we could look back and feel sorry about all the years behind us, but we could say, this is the present. This is the moment that counts.
This is our new normal.
This is our new normal. Right? I've had elderly people that were in their 90s who decided that they were going to be, they were not physically able anymore, but they were going to commit random acts of kindness every day by smiling at people and talking to the other residents and talking to the staff, smiling. And they discovered their passion doing that they really loved the act of generosity and how it brought joy into other people's lives.
And you have both things, and finding something you're passionate about and giving back to the world.
Exactly.
Those two things that you brought forward in the beginning of our conversation.
And I think when people do that, they stay healthier. The research has found that people are healthier when they're joyful, when they have joy, and when they have meaning, and when they're generous. Those things actually release chemicals in our body that keep our immune system stronger and give us more energy. And people
absolutely.
It actually hey, this is great.
And I would add to that, when they're in the act of creating, and I don't mean by that singing a song or painting a picture, but just having that, activating that creative energy, that creative life force.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell us, if you would, how people can get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, the best way, it's a one-stop shop, is my website, which is drmarakarpel.com. So it's drmarakarpel.com. Everything is there. My book, my show, my blogs, how to reach me, everything is there. And also, if people want to know what's happening, what's coming up, they could follow me on Facebook, which is Dr. Mara Karpel, Your Golden Years, like my radio show.
Great. And I'm going to be on your radio show, so I'm really excited about that.
In July. I'm really looking forward to that.
Me too. So to our listening audience, you could stay tuned for more.
Yes. And then you can do the talking. What you're doing.
So Dr. Mara Karpel, thank you so much. You have been such a generous guest, and just appreciate all of what you've offered to us. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on the program. And I appreciate the opportunity to share this with your listeners.
Yes, indeed. And to our listeners, thank you for being with us today at Wisdom Talk Radio. Please do join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And you can find us on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. We're just about everywhere that I've found. If you've enjoyed listening today, please leave us a review because that helps other people discover wisdom. And for more about fast-tracking your ideas to creation and revenue, find me, Laurie Seymour, over at thebacainstitute.com. Take the quiz and find out your creative innovator style so that you can turn your ideas into reality without missing another moment. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.